Yeah, so this was, as you saw at the end, sort of the result of it ended up being a 4-year program working with youth in the inner city community and just sort of trying to work almost like an experiment in terms of like collective storytelling and trying to engage people in like the telling of a story that's about sort of them and their lives and their community. And so yeah, so it ended up being, it's been really successful, I guess. We've been screening at high schools and colleges around the country. We're still seeking sort of distribution in the film world, but from in another respect, we sort of already accomplished our goal, one, in just completing the film, but then two, all of the conversations and things that have been generated from the film itself, which was our initial goal when we set out. And then all the other stuff has just been sort of icing on the cake. And it's been great for me as a filmmaker to have gone through this process, and I sort of made several versions of the movie, and I feel like even though I only this is my first feature film, I feel like I've done like 10. And so, and I feel like any other movie, if there's any type of budget, will be 1,000 times easier than what I've been through the last 4 years or so. I feel sorry for the filmmakers who heard my other Q&A, but that's, so we shot the film, and through this financial mix-up, I thought there was money in one account, so I was spending money, thinking that there was money in there, and then somebody else was doing the same thing with another account that I had. So once the shoot wrapped, and me and this other producer hadn't talked, we found out we were like $8,000 in the hole because we had been sending our film to get processed, and there wasn't any money to pay for it. And so, so for the next few months, I'm like scrounging around because I haven't seen any of the footage yet that we've shot, you know. And so then around November, I got really desperate, and I wrote letters to like 200 of my friends from Facebook. And it's like, if each one of you gives me $20, I can get this film back from the lab. I wrote this like personal letter of how I put my whole life into making this movie, and it's been a year, and I like hadn't seen any of the footage. And so we ended up getting about $1,800 back from the special sponsors. And so, so yeah, then I told them they would get a credit in the film, and they got a DVD once the movie was done. They would get a DVD and a copy of the soundtrack. And so yeah, so then we were able to raise that. We raised the $1,800, like a fourth of what we needed. Then I cut a little trailer with that and then used it to get the rest of the money, to get the footage back. And so by like, we finished shooting in August, and by like, I think April of the following year, I was able to get all of the film back so we could actually start editing the movie. So yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm going to get a DVD. It does seem like it would be very helpful for a lot of folks to see this.
Well, we're still trying to do distribution, so we're planning a theatrical release in January, like limited theatrical release. But then after that, we'll be selling DVDs online, and you can just sign up like on bilalstan.com is the website, and then you can like sort of pre-order one through there.
And what's a chicken head?
A chicken, a chicken head is a girl. Well, I guess maybe it might differ from different communities, but in Detroit at least, it's somebody who's like. It refers to like somebody who gets up in the morning and doesn't do their hair, so they come out looking like a chicken head. But it more so is like somebody who's just like kind of like skanky or just like
take care of themselves.
Yeah, exactly, low class kind of girl. Yeah. Yes.
Did you ever think of like not shooting on film?
No. I was like coming right out of film school, and I was a bit of a brat, and then and I was like, we gotta shoot film. But then also like I'm more open to the idea now of shooting digital, and we shot some of this in HD, like the street driving scenes. But it was more so about the process. Like for me, I like fell in love with the filmmaking process of just that feeling you get when you're putting all of this work into something and just like hoping that it comes out, you know. And then you don't get the same sense of immediate gratification like you do with video, where you just look at it right after you shoot it. But for me, it's so much more rewarding because you plan. And everything is so different, and film is very demanding in a way that video isn't. So when I pitched the script originally, the idea was like, I wanted to make like a Goodfellas that was like Amelie and like, what did I say? Goodfellas meets Amelie meets Boys in the Hood. And so it'd be something that like, cause I love Goodfellas, like it just takes you into this world, and they introduce you to all these like social norms, and you know, this is what it means to get made, and this guy can't touch this guy because this guy vouched for him, and all of these rules. And I felt like growing up, that's what it's like. You know all of these rules of when to make fun of somebody, when not to, this, that, and the other. And so I wanted that feel, but I wanted to be kind of quirky like Amelie and like fun and funky. And so, so I knew I wanted to have that feel of like, almost like a tour guide kind of navigating through this world. And, but then I wrote the voiceover stuff after we shot it because it wasn't feeling that way enough. And then animation got added like 2 years after that. I was on the set of my other feature film. We're wrapping up. And then we had this day actually where we're shooting exterior slums, Detroit, and it was this guy was picking up a prostitute, and so we were shooting the scene. And we go to this building, which is actually the first shot of the film, that big, huge building. We go to like the worst looking building we can find in Detroit, and in Detroit that's like saying something because there's a lot of horrible looking buildings. And so we pull up ready to shoot the scene, and there were these kids like playing in front of the big building, like in their swimsuits. They had taken the end off the fire hydrant, and it was like right out of a Spike Lee movie. And like I swear I had never seen that before in real life. And so like growing up, when we saw that in Spike Lee movies, we'd be like, that's so cliche. Still, nobody actually does that. Like you just use the water hose. You don't go get the fire hydrant. And then it was happening, and I was like, we're here to shoot this scene of like exterior slums, like, you know, coming into this community, but then like these kids live here, and like who's telling their story? And so right then I was like, we need to make a movie where we like get high school kids involved in the making of the movie, and then that way they can be telling their story like along with you. And then so right after that, right after we wrapped on that project, I went and I was like, I want to write a script, start a youth program, and shoot a feature film. And I told that to my professor, and she was like, you're crazy, but okay. And then so we planned all of them simultaneously. The effects project, we were getting funding for that, setting up stuff with high schools while I was writing the script still, and then while we were raising money in pre-prod for the movie. And then it ended up getting tied all together, so that the effects project, the way it works is it can build towards, it basically takes up all the pre-production for any movie that you're trying to shoot. So we have another feature we're shooting next summer, and by the time our class is actually over, all of our pre-production should be done. So then you just need a budget to come in, pay for your actors basically and your film stock, and then just start shooting. And so, yes, sir.
Yeah. Early in the movie, you made reference to the fact of how hard it was for Bilal to be both black and Muslim. And with Detroit being as close to Chicago as it is, and that being pre-9/11, I was just sitting here wondering why. Why was that much harder than it would for him to have been black and Christian or black and Catholic, especially at that time frame?
I think in terms of being black and Muslim, like the value systems can seem opposite. And so like, for example, with the party scene, like that was sort of, and even the scene with when they're praying and the guys are rapping, like that was like all of my upbringing kind of. Like you have this young generation where, at least in the black community, the cool things are like smoking, and like all the cool kids smoking and drinking. It's very materialist, like male sort of, or just masculinity is shaped in a very specific way. And then in Islam, like all the values are opposite. So masculinity, you're supposed to be humble, you're supposed to be, you know, caring, etc. You're not supposed to be materialistic or shallow. You're supposed to save your money or give money away. You're not supposed to drink. You're not supposed to do drugs. And so like all the stuff that like the cool kids do or that people do to be cool in that environment is sort of the opposite of the values that your religion is telling you that you're supposed to have. And so, and then when you're a kid, like.
So you could do all of those things if you were Christian or Catholic?
No, it's the same for everybody. That was the point of the party scene. When he gets to the party scene, like it's all that stuff. So it wasn't even like in comparison to other religions. It was just like that's what he says in the party scene. Like everybody's going through the same thing. Like my friends, you know, who had to go to church on Sunday shouldn't have been at the party no more than us. But growing up in that environment, like if you don't, there's so much. You'd rather take the punishment for going to the party and getting caught than the social punishment if you don't go to the party and you have to show up on school on Monday. And so, yeah, so it's that balancing act of trying to figure that out.
Yeah. The other night you talked a little bit about how you arranged the catering for your film, and I thought that was great.
Oh yeah, so in the way, part of the way that the effects program works is that we do sort of practical assignments. And so one of their assignments was to, like we didn't have any money for the catering for the set, and we were shooting 24 days. And so what we did was one of their assignments, the kids' assignments was to learn how to give like a business pitch or write a proposal, a 30-second message, et cetera. And so they had to like do research, they had to come up with a little mini proposal that they would do, and then come up, like practice their business pitch and their elevator pitch and everything. And then their final exam was to go out and give the business pitch to restaurant owners so we could get food donated for the movie. And so we had about 24 kids and there were 24 days on set. And so they just went out to businesses. They each had to do, I think, like between 5 and 10 businesses or something was their assignment. And so, or if, it was between 5 and 10 or up until you got something happened or something, you know, something worked. And so they went out and did it, and we ended up getting like 3 of the 4 weeks covered for food. And so when we had really good food too, because the way it ended up working was like the better restaurants could afford to sponsor you for a day. So we had like gourmet food for like 3 weeks, and then the last week we ordered $5 hot and ready pizzas from Little Caesars because we were just tired of trying to chase it around. But yeah, and so that's kind of like everything. Like, so they had location scouting assignments. So I didn't look for a single location in the movie. Partly too, it was my mom's house and my family's cab company, so, and my old high school ice carving room. So those were all found already, but all the rest of them, they were just assignments. They had to go into gas stations and churches and all that stuff, and the kids found all of those other locations, and we didn't pay for any of them. And then we got the university to underwrite like our insurance, our camera equipment, and everything like that, because it was being taught as a class. And so when something is a class for more than like 5 students or so, then the university has to underwrite and cover the insurance. So by creating the class component, it was still a really cool class. It was called Community Filmmaking. There were about 12 students registered, but I saved like $15,000 from having to pay camera rental, or actually like $25,000, camera rental for 4 weeks, insurance for not only our camera and our grip truck, but all of our locations, and everything was underwritten by the university, which has this conglomerate insurance thing where you just sign a paper, then everything is covered. And so we call it like win-win-win scenarios, because like the university has gotten so much press because of this, and we've been in every paper and they talk about us all the time. So they've definitely gotten their money's worth in terms of marketing that you could do for a program you're running. The high school kids got really amazing experience. They got to work on a film. Some of our students came out to Sundance. They like drove from Detroit to Sundance.
Do they get credit then?
Yeah, so the university students are getting credit. The high school students, the first year, it was an after-school program because we didn't have enough time to set it up for them to get credit. Now the high school students either get credit or get paid, depending on what they want.
When you were in college, you were at Michigan?
Yeah, I was at Michigan. Oh, I set it up in my senior year. So I graduated on Saturday, and on Monday I was teaching. Yeah. Although my senior year I kind of cheated because I knew I wanted to do this, so all of my classes were like independent studies in preparation for doing that.
They all drafted up like proposals to the restaurants and things, or like the kids did that? Like
Yeah, they had to write a proposal, so they would.
Taught them how to do it?
Yeah, so they would like go online, find the restaurant's website, and every restaurant, if they have a website, it'll say like, our value is to do, basically they would copy their mission statement, and then you would write, we see that your values are to paste mission statement. And our values are similar in that we want to paste our mission statement, and then that would be their pitch. And they had to get it all in 30 seconds and get through it without saying And so they practiced the whole thing, and then, yeah, they memorized it. And then they made pamphlets, and then they had to get the pamphlet in the person's hand in the first like 15 seconds of talking to the manager. You got to try to get the pamphlet in their hand so they have something to look at, and then go from there. Because I used to do like the knocking on doors for like Greenpeace. That was my job, and that's how they train you, is you have to learn your pitch, and then they just drop you in a suburb and they tell you to go and do your pitch and your rap, and they train you that way.
I guess if they're kids, you can't like slam the door in there.
Yeah, like kids from Detroit showing up, knocking on the door, you're not gonna be like, get out of here. And so, it was really great, and the kids like loved it, because a lot of them, they didn't have any job interviewing skills or anything like that, and so part of the pitch too was what the program was about. And like, so they'd say, we're learning professional skills to help us like enhance our current education and to prepare us for secondary education and going to college. And then they would have a personal bit too. So they had a 3-stage rap that they had to learn. And it was basically making them an offer they couldn't refuse. And so it worked. Yes?
I was just wondering about the rehearsal process.
Mm-hmm.
When you said you had written the script, I mean, did you keep to the script very tightly, or did you allow for improvisation once the cast actually got together and started working?
It depended. We definitely didn't keep to the script. There is no written script for the current movie because we had never gotten there. A lot of it came from, so Julian Gant, the lead actor, he's trained Keisha, the friend, Allie, and who else? Mila, the little sister, and then Craig is a film director and producer, actually. The guy who played Craig, he's one of my friends. No one else had any acting experience. No one else had ever acted before. And so they, like, I would just basically, some of them would try to learn the lines, but it actually was worse when they tried to learn all the lines, because then they would basically be like, they'd be thinking and like reciting, and then I'd be like, hey, stop doing that. Like, this is the point of the scene. This is what an arc is. And so I actually gave them like instruction about film and like who wins a scene and how that works. And then I'd be like, so I don't care what you say, just like try to get this line in there and maybe this one, and then by the end of the scene you need to be here. And then we would just go. And so each take that we had, editing was horrible because each take would be totally different, but then you found really great stuff in there. So like there's no continuity, like you get stuck a lot of times with a certain scene because they never said the same thing more than once. But like you found that natural, yeah, at one of those times they would hit a natural piece, and so so we would just roll with that one. Yeah. Yes.
So did you get an ice sculpture scholarship at
Scholarship?
all? Or how did that involve?
No, I didn't get the ice carving scholarship, but I didn't need it actually, or I could have used it, yeah, but I still went to college. I just took out student loans, and so. But I started an ice carving team once I got to college, and then since then they've actually won first place like 3 or so times, like 2 generations off of me. It's still going. So if anybody's in Michigan and you want an ice sculpture for a wedding, go to somelikeitcode.com. Yes.
I just want to compliment you because if someone told me this morning I was going to watch a film with ice carving as one of the centerpieces, I would have thought, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Very nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So this is a remarkable thing you've done, creating this not-for-profit organization aligned with the university and schools, and apparently, you know, you could make a career out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you intend to do, or is there kind of the lure of Hollywood, or something like that in your future?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out right now. So I was just in Chicago last week because we might be taking our program there or expanding our program there. And so I'm not sure. I know that every film that I make, I would like to include this process just because I feel like you can, like by the time you even get the film in the can, there's so much you could have accomplished. And so we're looking to just sort of expand upon it. So we have one idea where you involve like for example, in the building of sets, we have this like time travel movie that we want to do, me and my friend, in Detroit. But in the creation of the sets, we're going to involve like Habitat for Humanity and all these other groups so that as you build an old city block to be like this old 50s block, people can actually just move into the houses afterwards. And then we're just going to try to get Habitat for Humanity to fund all of our set building with some corporate sponsor like JP Morgan Chase. Then that way we don't have a production design budget. And at the end of it, we've like built a whole neighborhood that is perfect for shooting our movie. So like there's different ways like that we're planning to like expand and change this thing. And then nowadays we're going to make it into a reality show. So we have footage of the whole process. And then, so it'd be like extreme home makeover resulting in a little like neighborhood, which results in like a movie that had a really cheap budget because you got everybody else to underwrite all of your costs.
So what do you attribute this entrepreneurial mindset of yours?
Growing up in Detroit and not having any money and just needing to be creative in how you approach anything and being like, okay, I got like $2 and I want to get this thing that costs $5 or like whatever. And then you just find by hook or by crook, like you're gonna hustle to like make it happen. And that's actually what we teach our kids. So everything in our program is not just the filmmaking process. They learn these life skills. So we have these like 10 rules. And number 1 is like use what you got to get what you want. So you might not have, you know, access to a certain prop, like we needed a casket, you know, for the scene. So it's really hard to get a casket if you don't have a budget because they're like, you can't put somebody in a casket that we're going to turn around and sell. And we're like, why not? They're not dead. And so, so we ended up finding like the wardrobe's girl's uncle had a funeral home like an hour and a half away, or his buddy did or something. So we bribed him, or not bribed him, but like we bought like Rotary tickets for his Rotary club, and then it cost like $50. So he won the Rotary thing for selling the most Rotary tickets, and then we got like a thing. And that worked for our Steadicam operator too, as we just bought Rotary tickets for his little Rotary drive, and then raffle tickets. And so so we just found, like I said, win-win-win scenarios. And so that's how we grew up. You find other, I call it social capital, and you just deal in other types of capital. So if you don't have any money, I have something that I can use to trade you for something that you might have to get what I want. And then there are ways to build upon that. And I studied, like, I took like business classes and things like that. And so I added that business element to like the Detroit street hustle element. And then it creates this new type of capitalism almost that's kind of like social capitalism.
If you want to move to Tacoma, let us know.
I might. They're not giving us any funding in Detroit. Like, not to toot my own horn, but like we kind of did something really cool, or at least I think it's really cool, and we haven't gotten a dime from anybody in Michigan. And so I fund the program myself, like, and just by going, I do screenings of the film at high schools and colleges, and I use that money to fund the youth program, and we've been doing that for 4 years. The university hasn't given us any money, or nor has anyone in the city of Detroit. And so, and it's kind of sad, but like that's what happens when you make something where there's nothing there. And so now I'm in this position where it's like, do you stay and keep working there even though nobody's supporting us? Or do you, every time I go somewhere, like in Park City, they were trying to get us to move to Park City. They're trying to get us in Chicago. They want me to come back to Seattle from the Seattle Film Festival folks and some of those people. So like everybody wants you to go somewhere, but then that's the whole problem with Detroit now, is because when you're talented, everybody wants you to go somewhere, and no one in Detroit will support you. And so I'm trying to figure out what's selling out. Now I'm in the Bilal stand again. Like, am I selling out if I leave, or do I just stay there even though I don't have access to any resources and I can't really grow? And so I'm trying to process what does that mean and all of that stuff. So I'm back in the loop all over again. So growing up, I was born Muslim, but my parents converted, but I actually have two older sisters with my dad from another marriage who aren't Muslim. So I have siblings who are Christian, as well as majority of my cousins and other family. So it's really interesting because you grow up with this like double identity that you kind of turn up and down, like you would have adjust these. So like you fast during Ramadan, like it's Ramadan and everything like that. But then when it's Christmas, I'm still gonna go to grandma's house for Christmas, or at school they're still gonna do Jingle Bells and you're gonna be in the Jingle Bell show or whatever. And so, like I know every Jingle Bell show, whatever, the Christmas party. Because they had to stop calling, like I went to elementary school in Mississippi, and so they still called it the Christmas show, but then they had to stop because that was no longer politically correct. So every year there was a different name for it. I think Jingle Bell show was what they came up with one year. But yeah, so you still retain all of those elements in dating, et cetera. Like if you're in high school, kids are just gonna date if you live in America, or at least be very tempted to, and most of them will. And so growing up, it became this cultural thing where like parents knew that the kids were dating, and then you can have these real relationships because like my parents went to prom and my parents dated, and so, but then they try to tell me or my siblings that we can't do that because it's wrong, even though they did it and our grandma has a picture of them at the prom on the mantelpiece. And so there's this weird relationship then where like if you do something, that they almost sometimes feel like disempowered, like they don't have the right to fully tell you to do that. And so my father was really strict and he did, but then he passed away and then my mother didn't. And so, and I know different families who will. So I have one group of friends, they're all about going to the prom, and their parents are gonna help them rent outfits and tuxes and cars and all that stuff. And then other people, you can't even go and talk about it. So the community solution is that you just don't talk about it, regardless of how bad it might be, or even if they have an illegitimate kid by somebody, you just don't talk about it, and then it makes it okay or something.
My question is if it's like something that's Islamic social practice, or if it's something that's like written, like that is.
It's not Islamic practice. It's more just like a cultural, like a result of this weird sort of hybrid generation, because we're sort of like so many people converted all at once, but they didn't really create a full culture to sustain that. So then for their kids, you're growing up like trying to find which way to go between these two almost sort of extremes. And so you have this like oxymoronic identity, and then you just pick the pieces that you want sometimes. So like none of my family members or anybody I know will eat pork, but they might be hooking up with people, which when you look at it, like eating pork might seem like a much graver offense than like fornication, but like not to somebody who's in that world, you know? And so, because if you ate pork, it would be a violation of being Muslim. And hooking up with somebody is just like, that's kind of where I am right now, you know? And so it's this weird mixture.
By dating, you mean like hooking up?
Yeah, having sex. Yeah. So we're starting a campaign called the Take a Stand campaign, which is trying to take the film around the high schools and colleges around the country. So if anybody knows anybody, or schools, or your aunt works for the Oprah Winfrey Show and wants to bring me on, like come talk to me and let me know, because everything with this film has come from like a community sort of helping and supporting each other. So if anybody wants to be supportive, please let me know, because we're trying to build our campaign. So thank you guys for coming in.